Hi, greetings, fellow Arrow fans. We're going to look at Arrow Season 1, now continues on with the episode Legacies. Three masked robbers, three men wearing masks with the Ace, King, and Jack on them, break into Starling Trust Bank and knock out the manager when he says he doesn't have the combination for the vault. One of the customers, an off-duty police officer named Stan Washington, goes for his concealed weapon. But one of the hostages warns him against it, and one of the robbers, Ace, hears him talking. He shoots Stan several times before the leader, King, stops him. The police arrive and Detective Lucas orders the robbers to surrender. They send all the hostages out, wearing similar masks to their own. By the time the police struggle past the crowd, they discover that the robbers have tunneled out through the floor of the vault. Down in the tunnels, King tells Ace that they don't kill. Oliver and John are sparring at the hideout, and Oliver easily takes John down repeatedly. He explains that a man named Yao Fei taught him, but refuses to give John more detail. Oliver then brings up the file on another of the men on his father's list, Scott Morgan. Scott's beginning out power to the poor, but John points out that winter won't be for another month. He suggests that Oliver go after the bank robbers, nicknamed the Royal Flush Gang. However, Oliver says that he doesn't see a point in going after street criminals. John suggests that Oliver think beyond the men on Robert's list, but Oliver says he needs to keep his promise to his father so that he didn't die in vain. John says that Oliver has a narrow definition of being a hero, and Oliver insists that he isn't a hero. After the cave entraps him, Oliver burns a blank page from his father's journal to keep the fire going. As he weakens from lack of food and water, Oliver hallucinates and sees Robert's ghost. At the CNRA legal office, Joanna and Laurel learn that their largest donor, Stag Industries, has stopped donating to the firm. Tommy comes in and offers to fly Laurel out of town to Coast City for the weekend. She wonders why he's coming on so strong, and Tommy explains that he wanted to follow up on his offer to let her learn more about him. Laurel says that they've lost their funding and she has more important things to think about, and Tommy realizes that it's not a good time. At the manor, Thea and Oliver are talking, and she points out that their mother has been down since Walter left suddenly on his business trip. Mara comes in and tells them that she's invited Janice Bowen and her son Carter to have brunch with them. Carter was in Oliver's high school and was the perfect student that Moira always used to compare to Oliver. Oliver and Thea both try to get out of the brunch, but Moira insists, and they reluctantly give in. John calls Oliver to tell him that Scott just tried to kill himself, possibly in fear of the hood, and that Oliver says he'll be at Starling General Hospital right away. As Oliver starts to head out, Tommy arrives and suggests that they take his new car for a spin. Oliver passes, saying that something important has come up, and leaves. Theo's overheard the conversation and offers to listen if Tommy has something he wants to discuss. Without going into specifics, Tommy says that he's truly interested in a woman, but he doesn't think the direct approach would work for telling her his feelings. Theo suggests he find out what the woman is interested in, and then becomes interested in himself, and Tommy gets an idea. As he leaves, he thanks Thea for her help. When Oliver arrives at the hospital, John tells him that Morgan isn't there. The paramedics are transferring Stan, who is in a coma. Janet comes over and thanks John for financing the necessary treatment for her husband, and John tells her to thank Oliver since he's paying the bills. Once he leaves, John warns Oliver that he's the kind of man who doesn't walk away from someone that needs help. Oliver immediately agrees and tells John that they're going after the bank robbers. They go to the hideout and examine the video surveillance of the bank robbery. They know that Ace was the violent one who shot Stan. Ace is wearing a ring on the hand that he used to slap the bank manager. Oliver figures he can get the impression from the evidence lockup at the station. The night he breaks in, slips by the police, and downloads the file with the photos. The next day, Laurel discovers that Tommy is already at the office, talking with Joanna. He informs them that his company, the Berlin Global Group, wants to sponsor a charity fundraiser to keep CNRA going. Laurel refuses, but Joanna draws her to the side and explains that they need the money and she doesn't care why Tommy is doing it. Laurel reluctantly thanks Tommy for the fundraiser with some prodding from Joanna. Oliver reviews the photos and confirms that the impression is of Larchmont High School. Checking the records, he confirms that one student, Kyle Reston, disappeared 5 years ago right before his senior year. His family, his mother, father, and his younger brother disappeared at the same time. After checking the recording of the robbery, Oliver confirms that one more hostage left the bank that was inside, meaning that the female robber came out with the hostages. As he goes over the evidence, Oliver realizes that he's late for the brunch and heads out. He gets a minute just in time and makes small talk with Janice and Carter. Carter is talking about his career as a doctor and research scientist, and Oliver comments that Carter is the hero. In Starling City, the Royal Flush Gang is preparing to rob another bank. Derek tells his son Kyle not to shoot anyone. After Carter boasts about his job, Janice asks Oliver what he's going to do now that he's back and tells her that he's running a nightclub. John comes in and whispers to Oliver that the robbers have hit another bank. Oliver gives his regards, saying he has to deal with a liquor dealer, and goes out into the hallway. As he and John discuss how the robbers will probably escape via the sewers again, Myra comes out and asks her son where he's going. He avoids answering her question and leaves. Derek, Kyle, and his younger brother Teddy have escaped to the sewers beneath the bank. The police arrive and Kyle opens fire. As Lucas Hilton and his men return fire, the Hood arrives and shoots the bag away from the robbers. The rest is retreating. Oliver pins the bag to the floor with a trick arrow. As the bank robbers escape, the police spot the Hood and tell him to halt. The Hood shoots out a fuse box and hides into the shadows as the police run by. That night, the residents try to work out what to do next. Derek wants to leave for Mexico, but Teddy says that they don't have enough money yet to survive. And Ingrid House says that they should stick to the plan and get enough money so that they're set. And Derek reluctantly agrees to do one more job to put them over the top. Now that they have identified Kyle, Oliver and John meet Felicity Smoke at Queen Consolidated and ask her to do a background check on Derek. She confirms that Derek worked at Queen Industrial Incorporated in Starling City for 15 years. When Robert Queen closed in 2007 and outsourced production to China, Derek was out of a job. Derek was the foreman at the factory, but since Robert used legal loopholes to make sure he didn't have to pay severance packages to the employees, Derek had nothing to his name. Robert points out that he begged Oliver to survive and tells him to kill himself here and now if he can't keep on living. Disgusted that his sacrifice has been rendered meaningless, Robert gives Oliver a gun. When Oliver insists that he's doomed to slow starvation, Robert says that he can survive it. His son disagrees and puts the gun to his head. Oliver goes to the bar where the factory workers used to drink, and John goes after him. John says that what happened isn't Oliver's fault. Oliver says that it was his father that ruined them, and that he has to give the family a chance. As Tommy and Laurel plan the fundraiser, Laurel asks why he's coming after her. Tommy talks about how he recently picked up a girl and went back to her place, and realized that he had been there 2 years earlier. He left and remembered how he never forgot the times that he woke up next to Laurel and that it was more than fun. Derek is playing poker at the bar when Oliver sits down with him and explains that his father used to bring him there when he was a child. Derek, unimpressed, points out that Robert kept the truth about the shutdown right up until it occurred and lied about how the factory would stay in Starling City. Oliver says that people are hurt when they make wrong choices, but there's always one moment where they could turn around and do the right thing. He offers Derek a job, but Derek refuses, saying that he doesn't want charity from the son of the man who screwed him over. Oliver gives Derek his card in case he changes his mind and points out that they're both dealing with the consequences of Robert's decisions. However, now whatever happens is on the two of them. As he leaves, he secretly puts a bug in Derek's jacket pocket. Oliver returns to Hideout and listens in as the residents plan their next robbery. He realizes that the family is going to go ahead with the robbery and tells John that he's going to take them down. That night, Oliver and John arrive at the fundraiser. When Oliver tells John about his plain simple way, Laura comes in and Tommy compliments her on her dress. He then talks to Thea and finally tells her that Laura was the woman he was asking for advice about. Shocked and upset, Thea watches as Tommy goes over to Laurel. I think someone's jealous. Carter comes in and starts talking about himself, and then invites Laurel to have a drink with him. She goes off with him and Tommy watches, unhappy with how things are working out. Oliver goes over to Moira at the bar and apologizes for leaving the brunch. Disappointed, Moira says that they already had a connection and she knew what her son was thinking. However, now he isn't interested in being with her or telling her the truth. As Oliver considers telling her the truth, John comes over and tells him that he's heard that the residents are going for the next bank. Oliver tells his mother he has to go and tries to apologize, but she tells him not to bother. Kyle and Derek break into the bank, chloroforming the guard unconscious and blasting the vault door open. As they take the money, they hear someone moving outside. Kyle goes to investigate and Hood fires at him, but the robber has a riot shield and is ready for him. The two men exchange shots and Kyle's bulletproof vest protects him from an arrow to the chest. The guard wakes up and grabs his shotgun and prepares to open fire. Meanwhile, Derek has heard the gunshots and comes out to investigate. The hood shoots the gun out of his hand, and the guard prepares to shoot Kyle. Seeing his son is in danger, Derek leaps in front of Kyle, taking the shotgun blast meant for his son. The hood tells the guard to call for an ambulance and then turns to Derek. Derek insists that none of it is Kyle's fault and that he was the one who turned his son into a criminal. Oliver pulls the trigger, but nothing happens. He realizes that he's hallucinating as Robert says that he's made his sacrifice worthless. When Oliver says that he's not strong enough, Robert tells him that it's his responsibility. He apologizes for lying to Oliver for so many years about who he really was and says that he loves him. The police pull up outside. As Luke and his men charge in, the hood slips away into the shadows. At the fundraiser, Tommy watches Carter and Laurel dance. A drunken Thea comes up and invites him to dance, and Tommy realizes that she's flirting with him. He tells her that he thinks of her as younger sister, but she says that Laurel doesn't understand him the way that she does. Thea says that she's used to rejection from everyone, and Tommy's no exception. Tommy gets her out as she makes a scene. Laurel notices and goes after them, and finds Thea vomiting in the back alley. Tommy angrily tells her to go back to Carter, and Laurel says that she knows Carter is an ass, but he also made a big donation to the legal office, so she was dancing with him. Tommy admits that he's not thinking straight about her and gets Thea into a car. As he starts to go, Laurel tells him that he owes her a dance and that he earned it. As they drive away, Thea asks Tommy not to hate her and he assures her that he doesn't. At the hideout, Oliver is brooding in the dark when John arrives. John assures him that what happened wasn't his fault, but Oliver isn't convinced. John tells him that Robert will be honored by what Oliver did for Derek and asks if Oliver believes that there's now more than one way to save Starling City. Oliver isn't so sure, and John tells him that Stan came out of his coma and will make a full recovery. Oliver wakes up from his hunger-based delirium and prepares to burn another page of his father's journal. As he holds it up to the flames, the invisible ink on the page comes out. Looking through the journal, Oliver realizes that there are dozens of names, all the wealthy that control Starling City. He promises to his father that he'll live up to his responsibility. When Oliver comes home, he finds Moira pouring herself another drink. She apologizes for what she said earlier and admits that she's been lonely since Walter left. When Moira points out that Oliver has been distant, he says that he misses her and invites her to a late dinner. They go to Carly's burger joint and they order hamburgers. Moira prepares to eat it with a fork, but Oliver tells her that it's okay to get her hands dirty once in a while. She eats it, says that it's great, and assures Oliver that Carter doesn't know what Oliver knows about finding the best burger in town. She also tells him that he is better than Carter. That's nice of her. So anyway, let's look at some trivia surrounding this episode. This is the first episode of the series not to feature Paul Blackthorne. This leaves only 5 cast members to appear in every episode of Season 1. Stephen Amell, Susanna Thompson, Willa Holland, Katie Cassidy, and David Ramsey. This episode marks the first time Oliver is seen during the day as the Hood, as the character normally operates at night, although he did operate in a dark area and is able to hide in darkness. This episode marks the first live-action appearance of the Royal Flush Gang, only making 6 other animated appearances in Super Friends, Batman Beyond, Justice League Unlimited, Batman the Brave and the Bold, and Justice League Doom. CNRI has lost funding from Stag Industries. In the comics, Stag Enterprises is a research and development firm founded by Simon Stagg, who becomes the creator and arch enemy of the superhero Metamorpho. When visiting Laurel at CNRI, Tommy mentions visiting Coast City, the city where the Green Lantern Hal Jordan lives and operates. Later at CNRI, Laura asks where Tommy would take her this time, suggesting Monte Carlo, a movie which actress Katie Cassidy appeared in. Carter Bowen mentions how he's on track to becoming the next Dr. Oz, a reference to Dr. Mehmet Oz, a cardiothoracic surgeon who has his own talk show, The Dr. Oz Show. Oliver mistakes this for a wizard, referencing the titular character of the 1939 film The Wizard of Oz. This episode marks Emily Beauregard's first appearance until she was promoted to recurring for the remainder of Season 1, After being credited in the co-starring bill in the end credits for 2 episodes under the name Emily Ricards. Guest star Warren Christie would go on to portray Bruce Wayne in Batwoman. And now finally, let's look at some goofs. When Oliver took off his hood in Redwood United Bank, there was a camera facing him. There are 3 possible explanations for Oliver not being caught. The back of Oliver's head wasn't enough to catch him as the hood, considering he was proven innocent before. The security guard gave Oliver the security footage either willingly out of respect or Oliver threatening him. The camera's angle wasn't at the correct angle to catch Oliver with his hood off. Yep, just so many possibilities. So overall, I think this is a pretty good episode, and I like the fact that it introduces another core member of Team Arrow, which is, of course, Felicity. So there you go. So overall, I give the episode Legacies 4 arrowheads out of 5. Well, anyway, tune in tomorrow as we take a look at the next episode, Muse of Fire. And so until then, in the words of Oliver Queen, you have failed this city.